Hey everyone, how's it going? Dan here from PromptHub, and we are back quickly again to talk about the one and only DeepSeek, who's making news again with a new open source model that is multimodal. So, again, if you want to stay up to date with the stuff, we have a Substack that you can follow. We have a blog, but the Substack allows you to drop your email, and we talk about this stuff basically once a week. So, for those of you that maybe aren't familiar, DeepSeek is a Chinese AI company. It's kind of like OpenAI. They make models. They recently have been making a lot of noise for their reasoning model that is very, very performant that we wrote about last week, and how it's better than OpenAI's O1 in some cases. And so you can find some more info there. We also have their training template is in PromptHub. You can go check it out and see the training template they use for their reinforcement learning for R10. But just this week, after dropping R1 a few days later, they drop a multimodal model that is in some ways on par with DALL-E 3. And, it tops the benchmarks, which is important, but I think we really got to look at comparisons here. Side-by-side comparisons are really helpful when looking at image models, and it's the same way that you should do your own tests when running text generation models as well. So we'll do a little bit of architecture overview, the training process, we'll look at some benchmarks, and then we'll save the best for last. We'll go to the side-by-side comparison. So something that they note throughout the paper is they actually have two encoders, one for visual understanding and one for text to image. So the model can both generate images and take images as input, whereas DALL-E, for example, only generates images, and GPT-4o can only take images on inputs. It can't generate them. So it does both, and they actually have different encoders for these rather than having it all in a single encoder. So basically, they have something that handles when we need to look at an image and something that handles when we need to create an image, and then those both go to the same transformer. They scale it up significantly. This isn't the first version of it. There's a 1 billion parameter version. This is a 7B version. It's unknown how many parameters DALL-E 3 has. And interestingly, they use a lot of synthetic data in the training. So in the first version of Janus, it was mostly real world data. And, that wasn't the only reason why it wasn't performant, but that was an issue that they noted, was that the real world data just wasn't super good and it made bad outputs. They use a ton of high quality synthetic data to boost the quality and stability for the 7 billion parameter version. They had a 72 million examples, and they brought a ratio of 1-to-1 for synthetic versus real. So always cool to see the use of synthetic data in the training process. This made faster time to convergence, better. In short, just faster training time, better outputs, and more aligned outputs as well. And so we'll look at a couple of benchmarks, specifically text image, handling more dense text image prompts, and then multimodal understanding. So the first benchmark is called GenEval, which basically is just a bunch of prompts for creating images. So there's simple ones like a red apple on a white plane. There's ones where you're looking for positional alignment, so a cat sitting on the left side of the sofa, and then there's one where you're looking for color and attribution alignment, so golden retriever with a blue collar. Oops. And so we have DALL-E highlighted here as well, and then Janus-Pro. And, we can kind of go through all of them. Overall, you can look at the overall section here. And so overall, we're seeing DALL-E 3 is 0.67, Janus-Pro-7B is 0.8. And you could dig deeper into each one of these. They're pretty close in a fair amount of them. The discrepancy comes with like some of the counting versions. Janus-Pro is a lot better at the colors as well, and the positional ones. And so big win for the latest version of Janus there. The next is the DPG bench, which is dense prompt generation. So these are just more elaborate. So a black dog sitting between a bush and a pair of green pants standing up with nobody inside of them is like an example of this. And we actually have this for a side-by-side comparison later. And again, we'll highlight DALL-E here. And it's pretty close, right? 83.5, 84.2. I forget off the top of my head when DALL-E 3 was released, but you can imagine they have a better image generation model coming underway as well. But for where we're at currently and what we can test, it's highly performant in that way. But benchmarks can only tell half the story, so we'll look at a couple of side-by-side examples. So the prompt here at the top, a photo of a potted plant and a backpack. DALL-E versus Janus Pro. And so on first look, I was like, oh, the DALL-E one's better. But a few things actually. Technically, two potted plants, so that's not great adherence. There's also some kind of stuff going on here on the wall. And additionally, I think if you had to ask yourself which one looks like a picture taken like on planet Earth in the real world, I would say it absolutely would be the Janus version. Whether that's like better or worse, that's kind of depend on your situation. Here's that example we talked about before: black dog sitting between a bush and a pair of green pants standing up and nobody inside of them. So DALL-E gets it more correct. It adheres to the prompt better. It's the dog is between the bush and a pair of pants. The dog, all of DALL-E's images look very like AI, very DALL-E like. Like the pants here, I would say are much more realistic looking. There's obviously issues like this seam. The dog at first glance looks pretty real, but if you zoom in, like its eyes are all messed up. And I will have to admit, this made me second guess what a pair of pants are. You could see Janus maybe thinks a pair of pants is two full pants. I even Googled why it's called a pair of pants, and it's because back in the day, you used to like strap the leg parts on. So that's where that comes from. So I would say DALL-E is probably better in this case. Then when it comes to humans, you could see this looks like a very, very early version of like Midjourney or like Stable Diffusion, where the hands are just all messed up. DALL-E nails the hands, nails the human related features. Again, it still looks very AI filter generated. And then lastly, a spaceship that looks like the Sydney Opera House. DALL-E puts it in space, which is helpful. This clearly looks like a spaceship that we kind of would know and recognize based on like sci-fi. Again, I would say though, this Janus image looks like this looks like it could be a yacht, like a real world yacht picture taken. And so again, what that means is better or worse is kind of up to you and up to your situation. So again, I would say the Janus images look more realistic. The model struggles heavily with human figures. DALL-E's outputs are always like very clean and crisp. I think they also have like this kind of AI generated aesthetic. And there are cases where one of the models adheres better to the prompts than the other. And so it's really kind of a mixed bag. And so hope that's helpful. Happy prompting. We'll continue to put more stuff out like this on our blog. Bunch of resources below.